Γεια σας. Είναι η πρώτη φορά που επιχειρώ συνέντευξη, θα έλεγα εντός εισαγωγικών συνέντευξη, γιατί δεν είμαι δημοσιογράφος, αλλά και αυτοί που λογίζονται ως τέτοιοι πάλι δημοσιογράφους δεν τους λες, οπότε δεν βάζω εισαγωγικά. Κυρίως είναι η πρώτη φορά που επιχειρώ συνέντευξη με αγγλόφωνο, συγκεκριμένα τον James Bartley, που θεωρώ αξιόλογο ερευνητή. Εμείς οι Έλληνες δεν είμαστε εξοικειωμένοι με το αντικείμενο της έρευνάς του, αλλά ακόμα και αν πολλοί από εσάς δεν αποδεχτείτε ως πραγματικότητα όλα όσα λέει, ακριβώς επειδή δεν είμαστε εξοικειωμένοι με όλα όσα γίνονται σε απόλυτη μυστικότητα, ιδίως στις Ηνωμένες Πολιτείες και την Αγγλία, έχω την αίσθηση πως όλοι θα βρείτε τη συζήτηση ενδιαφέρουσα και όσοι τον παρακολουθήσουν με ανοιχτό μυαλό θα διευρύνουν ορίζοντες και θα διαφωτιστούν για πράγματα που είτε υποψιάζονταν είτε δεν μπορούσαν να διανοηθούν. Όπως είπα, ήταν η πρώτη φορά που επιχείρησα κάτι τέτοιο, οπότε ζητώ εκ των προτέρων συγγνώμη για αυτά που ενοχλούν σε αυτό το βίντεο, όπως εμένα, ας πούμε, που καπνίζω το ηλεκτρονικό μου τσιγάρο χωρίς να συνειδητοποιήσω πόσο θα ακούγεται. Επίσης ζητώ συγγνώμη και για την κακή ποιότητα της εικόνας και του ήχου, όπου εγώ ακούγομαι πιο έντονα, αλλά βλέπετε το Skype Video Call Recorder δεν δουλεύει, τουλάχιστον στα Windows 10, οπότε αναγκάστηκα να καταγράψω αυτό το βίντεο με άλλους τρόπους. Δείτε λοιπόν τη συνέντευξη.
Hi James, glad to have you with us at last. Before we start, could you please introduce yourself to the Greek community by telling us about yourself, your research, and the object of your focus?
Thank you, Vicky. My name is James Bartley. I'm an alien abductee. I'm also an investigator of alien abductions with an emphasis on reptilian abductions and what's been referred to as the reptilian overlordship. I also investigate military abductions, also known as milabs. Milabs are legitimate alien abductees who are also kidnapped, trained, mind-controlled, and utilized as operatives by deep black elements of the military and also with affiliated non-human life forms.
Right.
MyLabs can be utilized in a variety of ways, not only in the physical 3D body, but also in the energy body, also in their astral body.
Yeah.
So my emphasis has been with networking with MyLabs around the world and finding out ways to help people heal, reintegrate, and learn more about their experiences in a safe manner.
I love the way Solaris opened the floor for you in her show, asking you to discuss the first thing that comes to mind. And I'd like to follow her lead, considering that people all over the world, and given the situation in Greece, I would dare say the Greeks more than anybody else, have this ominous feeling that something big, hopefully not nasty, is about to come down on us. Do you have the same feeling, I wonder?
Yes, that is a feeling that many people have. It's a feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop, if you will, a feeling of trepidation, of expectation. And I feel that these are people that are tapping into their higher selves, their oversouls, if you will. They have connection with divine source, and they are getting these intuitive downloads and impressions of what may be coming down the pike. And thank you for letting me start off talking about what is uppermost on my mind. I've spoken about it on a number of occasions. It's the incoming mini solar system, some have referred to as the brown dwarf. It's erroneously at times referred to as the Nibiru or Planet X, but actually it's a brown dwarf mini solar system with one or more very large planets. and these planets, at least one of them, maybe more than one, are inhabited by non-human life forms, and the passing of this mini solar system through our solar system in the past has resulted in tremendous cataclysms and upheavals, not only in our planet but throughout the solar system. And I believe that the inbound solar system, mini solar system, is the reason why the so-called elite are making all these preparations and basically pulling out all the stops now. There has been a well-documented depopulation agenda that's accelerated.
Oh, yeah.
The chemtrail agenda is accelerated. The chemtrail agenda is multifaceted. It's not meant to just sicken people, and it's not meant to just alter people's DNA and then infect them with Morgellons or who knows what else, nanoparticles perhaps.
Isn't there a psychotronic part of...
Yes, because the chemtrails can be affected by electromagnetic frequencies.
Yep.
So,
what about the latest NASA projection about Mars and all that? What do you feel about that?
I believe that NASA is desperately trying to stay relevant.
Yeah.
They know that with the advent of the internet, more and more people have turned away from these discredited institutions like NASA, like the universities, like the academic community. And so every once in a while, NASA will throw us a bone. Still, it'll be a limited hangout, but it's an effort to make themselves relevant. And the latest...
Isn't that a silly effort, though? I mean, considering that they've been sending vehicles up there since like 1975 with Viking. I mean, only now did they discover water on Mars, for goodness sake.
Well, a friend of mine has just made me a copy, printed out a copy of the headlines of a paper, I believe in June 1978, I think it is, which shows the first images that were sent back by the Viking lander on Mars, and it shows a blue sky.
Yeah.
And it shows terrain, red rock terrain, very similar to what you would find in Arizona, places like Sedona, Arizona, red rock country. So they've been lying about the appearance of Mars all along. It's not this woo-woo red atmosphere.
Exactly.
It gives people the mistaken impression that it's an inhospitable planet devoid of life. It's quite the opposite, actually.
I think
when
it's...
they say that we found water on Mars, that's just something to give the adults out there and to give the permanently somnambulent, the sleepwalkers, something to sink their teeth into.
Yeah.
It doesn't really mean anything. It's they're trying to stay relevant. Likewise, when they make these announcements about near-Earth objects coming within close passage of the Earth, i.e. asteroids, in this instance, it's just them trying to stay relevant again, because many private investigators who've done their own research and have access to space-based imagery systems, they know that there are a lot of asteroids that are passing through the solar system, and some of them are coming quite close. And at first, they tried to have the media debunk all such claims and make the people who were reporting or claiming that there were asteroids within our solar system that may get quite close, that are quite large enough to cause havoc. Well, at first they tried to debunk all that and claim the people who believed in that were just conspiracy theorists. But then, once again, they were forced, NASA, to admit that yes, there are these near-Earth objects, as they call them, and some of them have gotten quite close, and there are in fact many of them. So it's an example of how the alternative media, if you will, has gotten these once powerful, almighty, all-knowing, omniscient institutions, got them on their back foot, got them in retreat mode, and they're desperately trying to stay relevant, but they're still maintaining the gatekeeper effect because
Oh,
there
yeah.
are many websites on the internet, such as Joseph P. Skipper's website, the Mars Anomaly Research website, where one can see all kinds of phenomena and artificial constructs on the surface of Mars, some of them quite gigantic in scale.
Yep.
So, and one can see forest canopies, trees, vegetation on Mars, besides pyramids and whatnot. It is not a planet devoid of life. Every time imagery from this rover comes back showing what appears to be a lizard, the standard pat answer from NASA is it's a rock that looks like a lizard.
Yeah.
If there's a skull, what seems to be a humanoid skull image, it's not a skull, it's a rock or a stone that looks like a skull. If an image captures what appears to be a squirrel or a squirrel-like creature, it's not a squirrel-like creature, it's a rock that looks like a squirrel. It's gotten to the point of absurdity. NASA is a circus sideshow at this point.
It is. I agree. I want to come back to my labs.
Yes.
What does this whole process involve besides abductions? Are mind control techniques and programming part of this whole deal?
Yes, they are. MyLabs stands for military abductees. It was a term first coined by Hans Lammer of Austria, but Hans Lammer was under the mistaken impression that the aliens that MyLabs see are the result of CIA narco-hypnosis, and that there's no basis in reality for them seeing these aliens, which is quite the opposite. MyLab, in my definition, is a legitimate alien abductee first, who also, on occasion, sometimes quite frequently, depending on the individual, is kidnapped, trained, mind-controlled, and utilized as an operative by deep black elements of the military aerospace community, sometimes in alliance with non-human life forms. These MyLab control groups, and there's not just one, there are a number of factions. They have each forged alliances with one or more extraterrestrial and or subterranean civilizations of beings. And some of these beings of both the subterranean and extraterrestrial variety have, for lack of a better term, an interdimensional capability. These MyLabs have within the morphogenetic blueprint resonance, within their DNA, the celestial ancestry, if you will, of not just one, but sometimes several different ET races. Because in truth, some of these MyLabs not only have had a number of past lives as an Earth being, but they've also, if one goes far enough back in time, have had past lives as what we would call aliens.
And I think they're psychic also.
Yes, and because within the DNA, the morphogenetic resonance, which they carry around with them, are latent metaphysical powers. And
so it's true. So it's true that they select psychics for that kind of thing.
Yes, they track these bloodlines because these individuals come from what we would call bloodline families, not just reptilian DNA, but they could have a DNA from several different ET civilizations, some positive, some negative, and they have latent metaphysical abilities and powers. And sometimes these have expressed themselves, manifested themselves since childhood in the form of precognitive dreaming, remote viewing, spontaneous instances of remote viewing, astral travel, etc., etc. Some of them are prodigies in their own right, extremely well-read, extremely knowledgeable, extremely intuitive, empathic, have a healing ability.
Yeah.
So these people are regarded as operational assets by deep black elements of the military aerospace community in league with certain groups of aliens.
Makes sense.
They're utilized not only in their physical bodies, but also in their astral bodies as well, and also in higher dimensional, higher states of being. the military, the deep black military, has always strived to if not just duplicate the capabilities of these super advanced alien civilizations, but to exceed the capabilities of these super advanced alien civilizations. And so they know that some of these milabs, for example, don't just have metaphysical abilities, but the metaphysical abilities become enhanced when they're in the presence of aliens, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
And
Stuart Swerdlow, Stuart, excuse me for interrupting, but I'd like to put this in. Stuart Swerdlow seems to be well versed in mind control and programming, and he claims that this is a practice learned from the aliens who have been using it for thousands of years. For some reason, this rings true to my ears. What's your opinion on that one?
Yes, I would say that there are potentially entire planets full of milabs, because what these alien beings do is they suborn other civilizations that are weaker than themselves, and then force those alien races into a form of cosmic vassalage, where they have to do the bidding of their masters, basically, of their alien masters. So potentially there are not just milabs on this planet, but countless milabs of one species or another throughout the cosmos, throughout the multiverse, if truth be known. So,
Yeah.
so that happens. Like, for example, some of these milabs can interface with alien technology in a certain higher state of consciousness and awareness and state of being. They can read alien script. They know innately, have an innate understanding of how to operate and interface with alien technology. They're even trained by various ET civilizations how to fly alien craft. So
Yep.
the military wants to exploit all those capabilities within these people and utilize it to advance, I wouldn't say necessarily their agenda, because I feel that there has been a lot of cross-pollination and infiltration in these various milab control groups. I don't see how they can keep out the alien non-human element, because we are all hybrids to one degree or another. And
yeah, that's what I wanted to also focus on. Swerdlow claims that we all have reptilian genetics as well as mammalian. What's your position on that?
Yes, we all have what's described as the R complex, the oldest part of the brain, which is where, like, territoriality, ritualism, a hierarchical understanding and obeisance to hierarchy, and sexuality and sexual aggressiveness. It all stems from the R complex.
Yeah.
And when one studies the various stages of development of a fetus, the human fetus, at some point it goes through a reptilian phase.
Yeah, it looks like a reptile.
Yes, to this day, some children are born with tails. I think it's called a caudil.
Yeah.
And you know, the doctors will cut it off at birth, but in some cultures
they let it grow.
Leave it on.
Yeah.
Let it grow, and the kids can even wag the tail, right?
In India, I think they're considered sacred. Yeah.
Considering, you know, the legends and the stories about the Nagas and whatnot. So yes, I would agree with him that virtually everyone who came into this world in the normal fashion would have some degree of reptilian / Draco DNA. I would agree with that, but really it's the soul quality. Now, I think if some people have an overabundance of reptilian DNA, and then their familiars, their reptilian or Draco familiars that track their family tree and their bloodline and interact with them and seek to manipulate and control them, those are the ones that would tend to have problems and have the potential, if not to go to the dark side, if you will, and
well,
be used as a
we
tool
can see many of the elite
yes.
going on the dark side, and it is said that they can have more reptilian genetics than most of us.
Yes, I would agree with that, definitely.
It is said also that reptilians are androgynous. Is that your view also? And if it is, how do they reproduce?
Some of the reptilians are egg layers. I'm talking about particularly the ones in physical 3D embodiment. There's this pervasive notion throughout the field and the internet that they're merely interdimensional, that they don't, that none of them reside in our physical earthly plane. That's a misunderstanding. Some are interdimensional in that they are not in a corporeal three-dimensional body, but there are
They're
many
in the fourth
that are
dimension.
still, yes,
Yeah.
I would say that they're in another dimension, and what David Icke calls the lower fourth. I would tend to agree with that description, but there are reptilians that, for the most part, stay in 3D physicality, and they live in underground
Underground.
bases within the cavern systems, deep beneath the earth, and some of them are quite technologically advanced. Within the confines of their own layers and their own domains beneath the surface, they have no reason to not be in physical 3D. Although many of them that are in physical 3D that live not only underground but off-world in this cosmos, they also have an interdimensional capability because some of the reptilians have the ability to alter their frequency, they can alter their density, they can alter their resonance.
Yeah.
This is how they take people up as hosts, right? They can alter their density and go into people in the dream state and manipulate their dreams and instill behavioral changes within them. It's a complex process, but I've described it before in some of my lectures and interviews.
Peggy Kane claims to be communicating with reptilians in the fourth dimension, discerning the truth of anything they state via reverse speech. What's your take on that?
I believe reverse speech has some validity. I had crossed paths with the guy who first brought out reverse speech analysis. David Oates, if memory serves, is his name. I met him in San Diego. He had come from Australia, and he was sharing the reverse speech analysis techniques with some of my colleagues in the San Diego UFO Society. And I believe there's some validity to it, but I also believe that it's possible for negative entities to manipulate the data, so to speak.
Yeah.
I know Peggy Kane. I've done interviews and shows with her in the past. A lot of her information in the past suggested that the reptilians were all going to leave. Well, I haven't seen that lately, right?
Yeah, neither have I.
maybe some of them have left. Okay, because I do know that certain ET races have left the solar system and this entire plane of reality for reasons which I can get into later. But the reptilians, they have not left. They're still here en masse, not just on this planet, but in the solar system, and more appear to be coming. But a lot of different ET races are coming to our solar system now because of what's coming down. The inbound nature of this mini solar system has the potential to create cataclysms on the surface which may wipe out countless people. So there's going to be not only a soul harvesting element, because many of these archontic ET races and interdimensional races are into manipulating the soul essence and harvesting and recycling people through the whole reincarnation process, but also they want to make sure they can still get a hold of a lot of this DNA which we're carrying around. They want DNA is a currency of the universe, like I said, and within it there's not only physical genetic attributes, but there's also metaphysical attributes, and they want to get their share of DNA before it's too late.
Go on.
As far as the question of whether reptilians are androgynous are concerned, there definitely is a male reptilian gender as well as a female reptilian gender. And like I said, some of them, at least some of them, are egg layers. Egg layers. Some of them may utilize advanced genetic techniques in order to bring their offspring into the world, but some of them definitely lay eggs that are physical reptilian in our 3D. As far as the androgynous nature of them is concerned, there does seem to be, in some cases, an ability of these reptilians to manifest either an androgynous or even a hermaphroditic. I would prefer at times.
Well, that's the correct term, actually.
Yes, that's the correct term, because a person may be having what let's use a male in our example, may believe he's having an erotic encounter.
Yeah, that I wanted to
a beautiful, blonde-haired, blue-eyed female space being, a human space woman, Palladian or Nordic being, or whatever the case may be. And then during the intercourse, like the illusion wears off, and he realizes he's really having intercourse with a reptilian. And sometimes what happens is, even though he was having coitus, intercourse, and with his own male member was penetrating this female reptilian being, suddenly what the reptilian can do is kind of turn the tables and suddenly start to anally penetrate the male. Somehow it has the means.
Oh my God, my God.
Yes, because there have been cases where someone was having also what he thought was an erotic dream, where he was going to make out with, in his dream, what he perceived to be a very, very desirable woman. And the reptilians have the means to amp up one's arousal mechanism, amp up one's
By the chakras.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they have a way to really bring someone to a state of sexual excitement. And on this occasion I was told about, the male was stroking the skin of the woman. He was stroking her arm, like downwards, and it was smooth to the touch. And then when he was stroking the woman's arm in the upward direction, up towards her shoulder, suddenly he found out her skin
Scaly.
was scaly.
Oh my God.
Yes, and he realized that, uh-oh, this is not like this erotic dream woman.
Yeah.
And the moment he came to that realization, the entity tried to sodomize him. So it seemed to have wanted the male to have heterosexual intercourse, penetrate the woman as a man would to a woman. But when it was found out, then it suddenly tried to sodomize him.
Yeah.
And
I guess though
Sorry?
that all these instances are for affecting their soul or their spiritual level, because I don't think two different species could produce an offspring, right?
I believe through genetic manipulation.
Yes, they are. I've heard that they are great
Yes.
geneticists, but not
Yes.
through sexual intercourse. I don't think so, though.
I've known of cases where a reptilian, what I call a rapetoid,
Yeah.
a male, either Draco human hybrid or reptilian human hybrid. A Draco is the winged,
Yeah, the winged
reptilian
one.
winged gargoyle species, where one of these rapetoids would astrally rape a woman, and then the woman would get pregnant,
Oh
pregnant.
boy. Oh
And
boy.
yes, and then what happened was the reptilians came one night and they extracted a fetus out of her, right? And so
So they
she was
do,
able
they do,
she was able to conceive. And
so they
then
do use sex for mixing genes then.
yes, and it wouldn't surprise me either when it's still within the womb or after it's taken out of the womb, where they enhance it even more. I've spoken to women who recall seeing little scaly lizard beings taken out of them
Oh my
as
God.
fetuses, developing. They're very similar to the scene in the original V series, where
Series, yeah.
the woman who was impregnated by the reptilian, they she gave birth to a reptilian
Coming
child,
back to the more real sense of reptilian influence, do you think that their effort to speed up the establishment of the New World Order now by the Pope and the UN speeches and all that stuff, do you think it has anything to do with the reptilian overlordship?
Yes, I believe the reptilians and other archontic beings are the driving force behind this, because a lot of the so-called elite are themselves into ritual magic,
Yeah.
ceremonial magic, hardcore satanic ritual abuse, and
And
some
baby
of them,
sacrifice and human sacrifice.
yes, and some of them themselves are not just reptilian human hybrids or Draco human hybrids, but literal shapeshifters that they can, and shapeshifting is real. People don't
Yeah.
just shapeshift into reptilians.
People can't wrap their head around this, but I think there is some
Yeah,
truth to it.
there is something to that, because it's been described for so long, and it's being described by people in today's contemporary world, right? People who don't know anything about this are describing this.
Yeah.
And so what these elite are doing is they're pulling out all the stops, they're shooting for all the marbles, if you will, because they're up against a celestially driven timetable. I keep going back to the brown dwarf, the Beeru, wormwood, call it what you will.
And all the energies
They are up against
hitting the
celestially
earth.
driven, and all the energies, because the energy is streaming in from the galactic core, what Dr. Paul Laviolette refers to as the galactic superwave. We're in the process of that. Also, the very frequency of our planet, the Schumann resonance, is increasing.
Is
It's
increasing.
spiked up,
Yeah.
like up to 12, and I think in some reports, maybe even higher. It used to be 7.83 hertz. Now it's spiked up. That's a quantum leap to go up to 12 and higher. And also, what physicists have found out, and these peer-reviewed journals and these peer-reviewed reports were yanked off the internet. The only websites that still have this story are those more of an esoteric, metaphysical bent. But it's a good thing they saved it. And the gist of it is that mainstream physicists were freaking out because even normally stable elements such as carbon-14 were exhibiting more rapid decay, right? And what does that mean? Because we ourselves are carbon-based units, to use a term from the Star Trek movies. So that means we're becoming more energetic, we're becoming lighter, our frequency is increasing, as well as the frequency of this entire planet and perhaps this entire plane of existence. So the fundamental constants are changing, and in order for them to retain control, they have to exert as much control and oppression as they can, and they're instituting more and more laws, more and more statutes.
That's why they're throwing everything at us now.
Yeah,
Everything they've got.
everything,
Uh,
every which way you can.
you mentioned before the archontic beings, so I want to focus on the archons. Could you elaborate on the archons? According to John Lash, who has studied the Gnostics extensively, they are non-physical entities. Would you consider them connected to reptilians?
Yes, that's where John Lash and I would differ. Doesn't believe in reptilians because for whatever reason he has some kind of bias against their existence.
Yep.
He's systematically ignoring all the countless personal encounters and stories that people have had the world over
Yep.
from time immemorial, having encounters with these beings. So, to me, an archon can be a physical 3D being, but it can also be a non-corporeal, interdimensional being.
According to Lash, they are not physical. They are not physical.
Yeah, see, that's where he and I would differ because these beings work through these hybridized bloodlines that we just spoke to.
Yep.
And these hybridized bloodlines have spread out and control virtually every institution we have on the planet, including the key institutions of the financial banking system, transnational corporations, the media, the entertainment industry, so the academic and school educational system, law enforcement. They control everything. And they work through these people. They work through these people because these people have a genetic, indeed spiritual predisposition to be taken up as a host.
Right.
So consciousness working through these people is not even what we would call a human consciousness, which explains their sadism, the cruelty,
they are psychopaths.
Sordid practices, the psychopath, because they're neurologically different from us. They lack frontal lobe capacity, which is the impulse control system in our brains, which prevent us from acting impulsively and going off in a berserk fashion. And there's another aspect that there's a lot of talk recently about alien artificial intelligence. That is real.
Yeah.
This alien artificial intelligence will work through not just electronic circuitry, wiring, computers, technology in a ghost in the machine type fashion. It will work through people.
Yeah.
Because anything.
What about this black goo? Is it AI?
I don't really know much about it. I don't doubt that such a thing exists. There's been novels written about such things.
Yeah.
For some time now, but I've known of this alien artificial intelligence for some time, and it manifests in a variety of ways.
Back to the reptilians, because I'm really interested on that one. Are there reptilians walking around on the surface with a human appearance? And if so, how do they pull that off?
What they've done is they've imbued their characteristics and their attributes through a long-term genetic manipulation upon the surface population. Some bloodlines more than others. Like we said earlier, virtually everyone has reptilian DNA, some bloodlines, some family trees, a lot more than others. And so some of those bloodlines that are...
The royal bloodlines, for example.
Yeah, the royal bloodlines, for example, and bloodlines which wind up in key influential positions, especially in the news media. They're often seen to shapeshift. It must be understood that the TV camera can pick up these morphs, these changes, much faster than the human eye can.
Especially the HD.
Yes, but some people can't see them. Some people can actually see, those that have psychic ability, can see the reptilian entity overshadowing the host human.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Do
But
you consider... No,
let me just
carry on.
Finish this point about the shapeshifting and them walking on the surface. There are many people who spend a lot of time going through archival news footage from the news networks themselves, looking for instances when a news presenter or someone being interviewed shapeshifts. It can be very subtle, where their eyes momentarily go vertical, turn into a vertical pupil, or it could be even more extreme, where their face takes on like a black, yellow, zigzag pattern, or even of a very reptilian, lizard-like appearance.
Yeah.
And it's not even a subliminal message. The underlying meaning behind all these news presenters turning into reptilians and back to humans is we, i.e. the reptilians, are telling you, the drooling news viewers, what to believe, what to think, what to eat, what passes for medicine, who to hate, who to want to kill.
Oh my Lord.
What they're doing, and if you look on YouTube, you'll find many instances of particularly Fox News presenters.
I've seen one instance about a guy noticing something that I hadn't noticed. They blink much more than humans, like 10 times more.
It wouldn't surprise me because some of them have an inner membrane
Yeah.
beneath their eyelids, kind of like a transparent membrane. Also, when they're shape-shifting, their eyes may grow bigger or the pupils may
The
turn
pupils
vertical.
go, yeah.
Yes, and some of the shape-shifting is quite extreme. I refer your viewers to the the YouTube channel that's put up by Frequency Fence. Frequency Fence has done a great work doing analysis.
Well, I'm going to visit that channel,
Yeah,
that's for sure.
you'll see amazing stuff there, and also some of these UFO presenters and UFO lecturers themselves are friggin' shapeshifters, reptilian entities. There's no shortage of them.
Yeah, I'm sure. Do you consider reptilians to be solely malevolent beings, or are they benevolent reptilians too?
Yes, there are benevolent reptilians. There are entire planets.
Because, excuse me, because we have the following phenomenon here. Many ethnic groups include the presence of reptilians in their mythology and traditions. With the Chinese, it's the dragons, not necessarily malevolent in their mind, the way they glorify them anyway. With the Japanese, it's the Naga. And there are legends of reptilians in ancient Greece. In fact, it is said that a dragon appeared during the Salamis sea battle against the Mydans. It is mostly the historian Pausanias who mentions dragons on various occasions, but according to him, they were either benevolent, who helped with various predicaments, or creatures who ran into hiding when humans saw them. There were no indications that the ancient Hellenes, Greeks, thought of them as malevolent beings. For the Africans, however, it's a different story. They feared the reptilians, the Chitahuri, as they called them, and I've lived through that because I've lived in South Africa. And they were strictly forbidden by the Chitahuri to depict them on drawings, carvings, or statues. So now you can tell me what your take is on that.
Yes, there are positive reptilians. In fact, I know of cases where positive reptilians tried to help an abductee or a milab who was being interfered with and harassed and manipulated by negative reptilians. And I've known of cases where positive reptilians acted as a sentinel or security or a guard for a woman who was being messed with by the military. It was actually kind of like a sentry, a human sentry, pacing back and forth in her living room and guarding her house in case the military showed up again. So, considering in that particular instance the quite negative experiences that woman had with the military, she viewed, understandably, that reptilian as a protector. And so I know of cases where reptilians actually have helped people. And I know of cases where reptilians have actually come to healers and asked to have an interdimensional snake entity which had taken them up as a host to be removed from them, from their body, from their energy field, because they no longer wanted to be utilized as essentially a slave to do the bidding of the hierarchy. Some reptilians have are more benign in that they don't really behave in any fashion, really. They're just, we call them messengers. They show up and they give a cryptic message and then they leave, right?
Neutral.
Yeah, neutral. They'll show up and they'll just say something that may or may not have meaning to the person, and sometimes the meaning only becomes apparent years down the road. But that's all they do. They're just messengers. They just show up and they leave a message.
Yeah, but nowadays, according to you and various accounts, mainly in the US and the UK, it seems that reptilians are seen overlords of this planet who have created the New World Order model, and there's definitely no love lost between them and the humans. In short, for all intents and purposes, I understand they are basically malevolent.
The ones that are causing all the problems, the ones that have created this New World Order system, the ones working through all these hybridized bloodlines, secret societies, and whatnot, yes, they are definitely malevolent. And they've been working on this agenda for a long time, at least as far back as the aftermath of the most recent celestially driven cataclysms, 12,500 years ago, thereabouts. They began manipulating the surviving surface population.
Yeah.
And not only genetically imbued their onerous attributes and characteristics into them, but also foisted harsh patriarchal religions and eradicated the divine mother worship, which had pretty much been the norm in many surface societies.
I think all religions are a manipulation tool, mind manipulation tool.
Absolutely.
I mean, as far as Yahweh is concerned, why would he say in Genesis, let us create man according to our image? You know, there's many of them.
Yeah, it contradicts with the whole Yahweh being
one God,
omnipotent, all-powerful God that's everywhere all at once, right? And the Christian fundamentalists, they don't have an answer for that.
Of course they don't. How could they have? Anyway, let's go to a different subject altogether, because I want to pick your brain as much as I can. According to Andrew Basiago and Captain Randy Kramer, who recently came out with his true name and credentials, there are human bases on the moon, and humans have also colonized Mars, where there are indigenous reptilian and mantis species too. I understand there are frequent skirmishes between the three races, but the Dracos attacking from space are the worst. What can you tell me about this? Do you have any knowledge about it?
Well, it must be understood that there is constant conflict throughout the cosmos, and that some of the reptilians...
I love you say cosmos. It's such a Greek word. Sorry for that.
And like, for example, just beneath the surface of our planet, there are certain reptilian races which have attained hegemony over other reptilian races. They rule over other weaker reptilian races. So they're not all in alliance with one another. Some have just overpowered others and make them do their bidding and whatnot. They operate within a sphere of influence. So the reptilians have created a sphere of influence, not only on our planet and our solar system, but in large parts of this galaxy.
Yeah.
And see, Mars is just an extension of what's been going on
Earth.
And I would like to demystify the whole concept of a Mars base and a Mars colony and the underground bases and probably surface installations on Mars. Because like I said earlier, Mars does not have a woo-woo red atmosphere. It's got a blue atmosphere.
A proper atmosphere, I guess.
It has a proper atmosphere. There were ancient civilizations which were wiped out in cataclysms, sometimes in wars, and there have been other civilizations that have survived underground. There are entire forests. Any photo interpretation analyst could look at the imagery from Mars, which appears to the naked eye to be large forests, canopies of trees. And if you ask them, well, what does this look like to you? They'll tell you it looks like a canopy of trees in a forest.
Yeah.
And then when you tell them that they're looking at a picture from Mars, that's when the cognitive dissonance kicks in, right? Because the programming.
The
It's supposed to be a
programming.
barren, dusty, red planet.
We're full of programming, aren't we?
They're full of programming. And so what we have to remember is that in the overall scheme of things, Mars is not even, as far as the deep black aerospace military factions which have developed interstellar and, in truth, interdimensional and time travel capability, they have long since established bases on Mars. Mars, I wouldn't even consider Mars to be on the front porch or the back porch. Mars would be like your dining room.
Yeah.
Like your kitchen in the overall scheme of things, with their ability to travel there either through stargates or through craft. So there's nothing unusual about the concept of a Mars base or bases. And I've been aware of a Mars base since about the late 80s,
Yeah.
early 1990s. So, and I've spoken to a number of milabs who have not gone public. Nobody knows who these people are. And they've told me a lot about their experiences going to Mars. Sometimes they go there in craft, transport craft.
Yeah.
And these are craft that are based in large part on the recovery and analysis and back engineering of alien technology.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, they have this ongoing interaction with various ET civilizations. So that's another means for these people to be taken and transported to Mars. There's also what they used to call jump gates. Before the movie Stargate came out.
I think Basiago talked about the jump gates, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he did. But I heard the term before that when I was living in San Diego.
And they used to send kids as well.
Yeah. Again, it comes back to the DNA, the DNA profile, because not everyone can survive such a trip.
Exactly.
They have to have the kind of, for lack of a better term, alien DNA within their DNA profile that would allow them to survive such an experience. You just can't take someone off the street and send them there if they don't have proper morphogenetic blueprint resonance and DNA profile. They'll either go crazy or they'll die. So I think that's also an aspect that needs to be understood. But yes, the Stargate programs are real, and there has been an underground military base for some time on Mars, and there's also surface installations on Mars, as there are bases on the moon.
On the moon.
Not only on the backside of the moon, but other parts of the moon as well. So in the overall scheme of things, those are quite local. The space ops that my labs are routinely sent on are far beyond the solar system. And in truth, some of them are in alternate realities, alternate timelines in the past or in the future. And some of them are in other dimensions entirely, because they have that capability. They've obtained a lot of technology, a lot of hardware
from the aliens.
These crash retrievals, and also from the aliens that they forged these alliances with.
I'm sure you'll agree that the war waged here is not only physical, with the elite throwing everything they've got on us right now, as we said, but mostly spiritual. Do you feel we ought to change our mindset, free our minds from belief systems, and open our horizons in order to be better equipped for such a war? How do you think we should fight such a war? Is humanity ready to go in to head-on battles with our power, to win our power back?
Well, they're going to have to make some adjustments along the way. It all starts with the first circle. It all starts with us. We have to go with
individually.
We have to reintegrate, and then we expand that circle out, you know, and network with other like-minded people. It's always better to work in small cells, not so good to work in large groups because
Yeah.
they're easy to infiltrate, subvert, and disrupt
Yep.
and manipulate. So it's always better to work with small groups of like-minded people scattered all over the place. And so I believe that if we work on our healing, reintegration, because in truth we are quantum multidimensional beings. The military controllers and the ETs know this about us. That's why they use us as a multidimensional operative, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
However, on our normal waking consciousness, we can't do a lot of the things that they are able to make us do in these experiences. They can make us interface with alien technology. They can make us pass through solid objects. They can make us utilize telekinesis. They can make us utilize telepathy, so on and so forth. But in our normal working you know, everyday consciousness, we're just trying to eke out a subsistence living. We're living in a day-to-day world, and we have all the burdens and all the
You can say that again.
the turmoil that we have to deal with on a normal basis, because this is a simulation matrix which has been constructed.
You should see what's going on in Greece.
Yes, and then one day I'd like to really talk at length with you about that.
Oh yes, I've thoroughly enjoyed this talk, but that's not the end of it. That's for sure. We're going to have much more talks about various stuff. We just made an initial touch base sort of interview right now, but I'm going to have you back, and I want to have you back. You're one of the best people I've worked with and spoken to, and the Greeks are going to get to know more of you, that's for sure.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I've always had a great deal of respect for the Greek culture. I've studied ancient Greek and Persian history, and I've studied the Peloponnesian Wars,
Yeah.
the Spartan Alliance, and the Athenian Empire, and all
So
that.
you're a
I've always
historian as well.
Yeah, I'm an independent historian.
Yeah, I can
I
see
am,
that.
and I've been fascinated with Greek mythology since I was a boy. But getting back to your question, it always starts with ourselves. We can't presume to want to help and heal others.
If we don't
understand
work on ourselves first.
Work on ourselves. So the example I like to use is the Shaolin monk, right? He didn't carry any edged weapons like a spear or a sword or a knife. He just carried like a long pole, and he was kind of like a protector of travelers. Like he'd be walking along some road somewhere, and he would see bandits set upon some travelers. He would go there and, you know, as they say in America, open a can of whoop ass on the bandits, knock them all out, and then he would bow to the people that he saved, and he'd be on his merry way. Uh, Never once in that whole process was his internal harmony altered. Never once in that whole process, before, during, and after the combat, was his equilibrium altered, because he's able to retain this ongoing inner harmony, and that's what we have to strive for, no matter what's going on around us.
If we
no
can,
matter how crazy and insane this world gets, we have to retain our inner harmony.
if we can
Because
conquer
that's how
that, that's half the war won. At least half the war won.
This is true because we are resonators. We are resonators of emotions and energies and feelings. And this simulation matrix has been set up in such a fashion as to wring out of us, very much like bringing out a wet sponge, all these negative emotions of fear, of despair, of hopelessness, of lack of abundance, of loneliness and self-loathing, so on and so forth. And notice those are all disempowering feelings, and we exude those out into the ether. And some of these archontic beings, like the mantis beings in particular, in other dimensions and other planes of reality, they literally have. This has been viewed by in psychic third eye visions and remote viewings by quite gifted mystics and seers. They see how the mantis beings set up these machines, for lack of a better term, with big hoses that extend into our reality and absorb all this energetic angst and these negative emotions which we exude. Just think about just one simple household that is riddled with debt, that has all these addiction problems and drug and alcohol addiction problems and narcotic manipulation. Just that one family and how much angst and how much unhappiness and emotional distress that one family exudes, and then multiply that by all the other families.
Oh boy.
And all
Especially in Greece right now.
especially in Greece. And then think about how the entertainment media, if you want to call
Oh
it that,
boy.
and the news media, and also the frequencies that constantly pump out the rage frequency. People are becoming more impulsive these days. They're going crazy. Many people, they're becoming unhinged and unbalanced, and all of that is symptomatic of the simulation matrix in which we find ourselves in, and how it's all under archontic manipulation and control. So we heal ourselves as much as possible. I'm a work in progress. I'm not going to sit here and say I've got it all figured out and I'm perfect, because I'm not. I'm an imperfect being, and I'm striving to heal and reintegrate and once again become the quantum multidimensional being I used to be in past, present, and parallel incarnations, because as you know, it's all the eternal now.
Yeah.
Time is an illusion. That's part of this matrix simulation. So, and then what we do is, especially where my labs are concerned, my labs are the X factor. And people that have my lab-like capabilities, shamans, seers, mystics, the elders in these various indigenous societies in North, South America, Siberia, Australia, elsewhere, those are the people that can anchor in higher and higher dimensional frequencies, pull it down into themselves, pull it down into the earth grid, and heal themselves, their surroundings, on this very planet. And we have a lot of allies. We have nature spirits that want us to succeed, because they know some of us have a deep empathy and feel a deep sense of responsibility for the environment and for all the life forms on this planet. And there are helpers in the form of our extended higher dimensional ET star families. Typically we come from more than one, or we were more than one in past incarnations, ET, member of an ET race. So we have a lot of highly evolved spiritual beings at multiple levels of creation within this multiverse,
Guiding and helping us.
guiding us, and all we have to do is stay plugged into divine source, right? Because we are manifestations of divine source, and what we do, and some of us will have to make tough choices, right? Because we're going to see and experience things which will test the resolve and the mettle of the strongest person, like our ancestors going back a few generations. They went through the Great Depression. It was all contrived and manipulated. They went through World War I. They went through World War II. Those were all manipulations too. There were no good guys or bad guys. There were just pawns on both sides. And,
Yep.
And what's interesting is a lot of the people that I've spoken to, and it's not a small sample size. There's a considerable number of people that I've come across that their most recent incarnation, they passed away either shortly before, during, or after World War II. So the way I see it is, what better training ground, if you will, for these people who have survived such tumultuous times. And then if you look further back in some of the past lives of these people, not only did some of them, survive like the Hunnic invasions of Europe and the Mongol invasions.
Oh boy.
They also
We survived the Mongol invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some have survived, the final cataclysms of Atlantis, and some of the cataclysms that destroyed the very advanced, or compelled the very advanced surface civilizations to leave, 50, 100,000 years ago or more. So it's within our morphic resonance and within our cellular memory that some of us have already survived and thrived in some of these circumstances. So there's nothing really to fear, but we are immortal beings. We have to remind ourselves of that.
Yeah.
So you know, we work internally, and then we also do the practical things necessary to ensure our survival. We still have to eat. We still have to, you know, protect ourselves. We still have to maintain some degree of physical fitness. Endurance is far more important than bulging muscles. So those who train should train for endurance, right? And getting by with as little as possible and conditioning one's body to survive in reduced circumstances. And so, yeah, because as time goes on, we live in a world of probabilities. Some of these things that have been forecast may happen. Some have a higher degree of probability than others, and it's not just going to be any one thing. It'll be a stream of things running in parallel with one another, and we have to be able to overcome all of that, right? And we must always remember that we do have this higher dimensional assistance. We just have to call upon it, talk to it, get in tune with the resonant frequency, and be able to discern when this is some kind of archontic entity, this is some kind of malign spirit that's trying to mislead me, feed me metaphysical pablum, I'm not interested, right? So we just have to condition ourselves to trust our intuitive guidance, trust what our heart center tells us. There are people out there that are saying that our heart center is bad, we should ignore it. That's complete nonsense, and that's coming from people who are matrix sentinels. Our heart is an electromagnetic dynamo, it's a power station. Our hearts, our cardiovascular system pump out more electromagnetic energy than anything, including our brains. So if we're able to tune into what our heart center is telling us in simple, like yes, no fashion even, or as far as intuiting things that we need to understand, also in connection with our solar plexus. It's important to free up the meridians. It's important to break out of these obsessive compulsive thought disorders, which tend to lower our vibrations. There's a lot of things that we can do. And a good place to start is good association. If one is spending time with bad association, people with all kinds of addictions and OCD, thought loop, narcissistic behaviors, control freak tendencies, they need to break away, detach from association, because again, we are resonators. We begin to resonate at that frequency. And some of us are stuck in lousy family situations because society brainwashes us that on the one hand, they want to break up the family unit, but on the other hand, they tell us to stick it out with toxic family members simply because they're family members. That's not the case. We chose these families, even quite abusive, negative families, because they gave us the best opportunity. All things considered, the good and the bad, the families that we chose, in many cases, now some people, because of all these bogus past life agreements, archontic manipulation, cords and attachments from many lifetimes past, they don't have a choice in what families they get born into. They just get hatched into another satanic ritual abuse, horrific kind of family situation, and my heart goes out to them. But a lot of other people, they have a choice. Okay, I have a choice between these four families, and they all have their pluses and minuses. This one is not a perfect family, but it's the best under the circumstances.
Yeah.
It gives me opportunities that the other families won't give me, right? And that's how we have to look at these things. And
That's
so,
right, I agree.
but it doesn't mean that we have to stick around with negative, toxic family members either. We have to detach from them.
Or negative toxic friends.
Or negative toxic friends, because they're all matrix sentinels.
Exactly.
There is such a thing as a hive mind parasite virus,
Yeah.
which is part and parcel of this alien artificial intelligence. And this hive mind parasite virus infects virtually everybody. It creates like a form of stinking thinking.
I know.
If you don't mind me saying. And people have to be aware that, you know, thoughts are things in the spirit world, and if you're always around people who are just negative and always spouting off negative things and everything is doom and gloom, and the thing about it is, you and I, we can have a dispassionate conversation. At times, there's always going to be an emotional investment and an emotional outpouring because we're just outraged at the scale of the injustice and all that. But we can still have a very calm discussion about these issues, because we can see the bigger picture. You know,
Well,
but there's some people who don't know about these big picture issues, but they're still always complaining. They're still bitching and moaning, and those are the people that we need to detach ourselves from, because we're
true.
allowing ourselves to get stuck in their auric field, and that's going to resonate with us. It's going to cause holes in our auric field, and it'll give these negative archontic beings inroads into messing with us. So we have to protect our personal energetic space. We're
Well,
already getting beamed all the time by frequencies and Gwen towers and harp and
oh
CERN and
boy,
everything else.
you can
And
say
the
that again.
440 hertz, the 440 hertz music, right?
Yeah.
So we have to detach and create our own.
We'll deal with all this separately. This has been an empowering first base, touch base interaction, at least for me. You gave out important insight to whoever received it. We will be back with more focusing on specific subject matter in each talk. Thank you so much for our first interaction, which will definitely not be the last. Be well and God bless, my dear James.
Thank you, Vicky. Same to you. Thank you for having me come on here and speak for your wonderful audience.
Thank you for speaking to us. Lots of love and hugs from Greece.
Thank you. Paracalo.